हेलो एंड वेलकम टू की स्टडी पॉइंट। होप यू ऑल आर डूइंग वेल। आप सभी अच्छे हैं और यू ऑल आर एंजॉयिंग योर लाइफ। सो विल discuss few more questions as we are usually doing this practice of discussing MCQs for UPHSC English syllabus. So let's start with the first question. What is the focus of T.S. Eliot's article on the metaphysical poets? We are talking about MCQs that have been taken from Unit 5th that deals with literary theory and criticism. So in previous video we talked about works by T.S. Eliot like Hamlet and his problem and all others. So let's talk about few more questions from that particular author T.S. Eliot. What is the focus of T.S. Eliot article on metaphysical poets? Options are a critique of metaphysical poets' historical impact, a review of Harvard J.C. Grierson anthology metaphysical lyrics and poems of 17th century, a comparison between metaphysical and modern poet, analysis of metaphysical poets' influence on contemporary poets. So option B is the correct answer here. Uh, a review of Herbert J.C. Grierson anthology metaphysical lyrics and poems of the 17th century. That was the work that influenced T.S. Eliot, and after reading that, he decided to work on those poets called metaphysical poets. Next, which group of poets does Eliot compare the English metaphysical poets to in his article? Victorian poets, French symbolist poet, romantic poets, modernist poets. So he compared them with French symbolist poets. So this is very tricky and important question. Option B is the correct answer here. Next question, question number third of the video. According to Eliot, what difficulty does he face in defining metaphysical poetry? He said that he faced difficulties while he was defining metaphysical poetry. He was working on all those great metaphysical poets. So he found some difficulties. What are them? There are too many poets from the era to choose from. The metaphysical poets were not English. English writer होगा यहाँ. There is a mistake. Okay, please ignore it. There is considerable variation in style and technique between the poets. It lacks historical significance, so option C is the correct answer here. There is a considerable variation in style and technique between the poets. That why T.S. Eliot faced difficulties while defining metaphysical poetry. Okay. Next question. Which critic's line does Eliot quote regarding the metaphysical poetry style of combining disparate ideas? William Wordsworth को quote करता है, Samuel Johnson, John Milton, Alexander Pope. So he quote Samuel Johnson. Option B is the correct answer. This is again important question. How does Eliot respond to Samuel Johnson's critique of metaphysical poetry? You all know that Samuel Johnson gave very negative ideas, negative thoughts about metaphysical poetry and poets. But T.S. Eliot praised them. From the dedication of T.S. Eliot or from the study of T.S. Eliot, we or general people who love reading literature, they come to know about these poets of 17th or late 16th century. Okay, so options are by agreeing with Johnson's assessment, by defending the metaphysical poets, stating that poets in general combine heterogeneous ideas, by denying that any poets combine disparate ideas, by focusing solely on the technical aspect of metaphysical poetry. Option B is the correct answer here, right? Next question. Which poem of Samuel Johnson does Eliot quote in his article? He quotes a poem. Options are Vanity of Human Wishes, The Lives of the Poets, The Rambler, London. So option is the correct answer, The Vanity of Human Wishes. Eliot quotes this work of Samuel Johnson. Next question, question number 7. What is Eliot's what is Eliot's argument about Johnson's critique of the metaphysical poet? Options are Johnson's critique is completely justified, Johnson's critique is hypocritical because he also combines heterogeneous ideas in his own poetry. Johnson is only critiquing specific metaphysical poets. And option D, Johnson's critique only applies to later poets. So option B is the correct answer here. Johnson's critique is hypocritical because he also combines heterogeneous ideas in his own poetry. This is the we can call it a view of Eliot about Johnson, because Samuel Johnson criticized metaphysical poets, but Eliot was of the idea that they are to be criticized. They are very good poet which have depth in their poetry, and that poetry should be widely read across the globe. Okay, and after that work of T.S. Eliot, after these essays by T.S. Eliot, metaphysical poets and metaphysical poets. Okay, after that essay, metaphysical poets got popularity. They became very popular across the globe. Their poems, their poetry began to uh, they begin or included in curriculum of bachelors, masters. Okay, in several countries across the globe. Okay, even in India, we teach these poems in school 7. Okay, next question. How does Eliot defend the metaphysical poets against Samuel Johnson's criticism? Options are by arguing that their technique was unique and unparalleled, by suggesting that all poets, not just metaphysical poets, combine different materials in their works, and next option C, by focusing on their innovation in meter and time, by claiming that metaphysical poets were more intellectual than other poets. So option B is the correct answer, by suggesting that all poets, not just metaphysical poets, combine different materials in their work. So option B is the correct answer. A few questions based on dissociation of sensibility. What does T.S. Eliot mean by the term dissociation of sensibility? I have made a separate video on that term. You may watch that video also, or you may comment in comment box if you want to a separate video explaining this term in detail. Options are separation between intellectual thought and emotional experience in poetry, the integration of feeling with thought in modern poetry, the distinction between metaphysical and romantic poets, ability of poets to experience emotions without intellectual reflection. So option A is the correct answer. Dissociation of sensibility means the separation between intellectual thought and emotional experience in the poetry. This is a complicated term, so you may read more about it. Next question. According to Eliot, which poets were influenced by dissociation of sensibility? Milton, Blake, John Donne, George Herbert, Tennyson, Browning, Samuel Johnson, Matthew Arnold. So Tennyson and Browning were influenced by dissociation of sensibility as per T.S. Eliot. So option C is the correct answer here. Next question. What is Eliot's theory regarding the change in poetry between the time of John Donne and time of Tennyson and Browning? Options are poetry became more philosophical and abstract, poetry lost its connection between thought and feeling, poetry became more simple and direct, poetry became more emotionally charged without intellectual depth. So option B is the correct answer. Poetry lost its connection between thought and feeling. Next question. What does Eliot consider the result of dissociation of sensibility in poetry? It created a new form of poetic expression. It led to a balance of intellect and emotion in later poets. It separated thought from feeling in poetry, diminishing its depth. It allowed poets to focus exclusively on emotions without intellectual concerns. So option C is the correct answer here. It separated thought from feeling in poetry, diminishing its depth. Next question. What does Eliot use as an example of successful integration of thought and feeling? William Shakespeare. Which poet does T.S. Eliot use? Okay, William Shakespeare, John Milton, John Donne, Andrew Marvell. So, as he praised John Donne, he was the ideal poet for uh, T.S. Eliot. So, option C is the correct answer here. How does Eliot describe the metaphysical poets in relation to dissociation of sensibility? They epitomized the loss of connection between thought and emotion. They were able to unify their intellectual thought with emotional experience. They separated the intellect from emotions intentionally for artistic effect. They did not influence the dissociation of sensibility at all. So option B is the correct answer. They were able to unify their intellectual thoughts with emotional experience. Option B is the correct answer here. Next question, what does Alan Austin suggest about Iliad's theory of dissociation of sensibility? It focuses on separation of emotional experience from poetic form. It emphasizes a combination of wit and emotion in poetry. It critiques the lack of intellectual depth in contemporary poetry. It defends the loss of intellectualism in modern poetry. So, option B is the correct answer. It emphasizes a combination of wit and emotion in poetry. Next question, how does Henry Louis Gates Jr. apply the concept of dissociation of sensibility? To show the loss of race related themes in contemporary literature, to argue that modern poetry should be emotionally driven, to support the integration of racial theme into literary theory, to explain how dissociation affects the structure of modern literary works. To show the option is the correct answer, to show the loss of race related themes in contemporary literature. Next question, what does Eliot argue is the consequence of dissociation of sensibility in poetry? Options are, it led to the rise of emotional poetry, it created a more refined language but crude feelings, it allowed poets to focus on emotions exclusively, it diminished the impact of metaphysical poetry. So option B is the correct answer here. It created a more refined language but crude feeling. Next question or last question of the video. According to Eliot, when did the dissociation of sensibility begin in English poetry? During the 18th century, between the time of Donne and Tennyson, in the early works of Shakespeare, after the English Civil War. So option B is the correct answer, between the time of Donne and Tennyson. So this is a collection of 20 or 25 MCQs based on the syllabus of UPHSC. आपको कैसे लगे, you can comment, you can write your views in comment box. If you like my efforts made by me and my few student, those who are part of that work, you can press like button, you can share the video to your students, because student and their motivation always works for the teacher, so you may share to your student as well, they can get benefit from our videos. There are playlists available, many playlists available on the channel, you may watch them also if you want, but if you share them to your student, they can definitely get some help from those videos, those topics. So you may do that. I hope that you all are great personalities, you all may help others, you generally help others, and it is all about connection, you will do it definitely. Thank you so much.